Welcome to Vizspiration. Thanks for coming out. I know you probably walked 10 miles to get to this room. Thank you for being here. My name is Karen Henson. I work for Chick-fil-A in Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you. I'm an analyst in our financial services department, and I've been with Chick-fil-A and using Tableau since 2013. Today's session is all about learning from others in the Tableau community. But before we get started, it's worth asking, why bother? Why does that matter? What is it that we, Tableau developers, are really trying to achieve? So one word, condo. All right, this is a Japanese phrase, and there's no exact or precise translation to English, but here's the gist of it. Condo describes the feeling of joy, satisfaction, intense excitement that we experience when we encounter something of great value. So when you think about it in terms of like our world, we can give our stakeholders an Excel spreadsheet, and they can make sense of the data in rows and columns. But we use data visualization software like Tableau because we want to do this. We want to wow people. We want to tell a story with the data. We want the data to come to life. This, ultimately, is our goal. So what does this look like in terms of data visualization? So I have a few examples of some top-notch visualizations by some of my favorite Tableau authors. And when you think about it, for years, there really weren't all that many ways you could visualize data. Maybe a line chart or bars, or if you got crazy, a pie chart. But today, there's an endless number of ways you can visualize data using software like Tableau. And if you're sitting there looking at this stuff thinking, that takes a lot of technical skill, or I don't have the creativity maybe to do those things, you're in luck, because there are so many in the Tableau community that are just more than willing to share their knowledge with you. So what does that feel like if you're able to create condo at work? This tweet kind of sums it up. Whether you've had an experience like this with Tableau or just anything in terms of your career, you take pride when you create something in your organization and it's valuable and people find it beneficial. So how do you get there? I've outlined several steps in today's session that have kind of worked for me. So being plugged into the Tableau community, for me, that's really staying active in user groups and online, participating in challenges like Makeover Monday or Workout Wednesday, and I'll touch on those a little later. Simply watching out for ideas and people who are innovating, looking for people who are pushing the limits of what you thought was possible with the software, and reverse engineering their workbooks to learn tips and tricks and then applying what you learn at work. So I'll go through several examples of kind of my stepping through this type of process at Chick-fil-A. 4 examples, and I'll start with this one. So this dashboard was built by a Zen master, Matt Chambers. This viz is all about new cars, the color of new cars, and the popularity of those colors over time. And you may be familiar with charts like this today, bump charts, but I came across this in 2016 and hadn't seen anything like it before, so it kind of caught my attention. And Matt has a blog, and like many people in the Tableau community, when he creates something cool, he outlines step by step, here's how I did it. This is exactly what I did. Here's a screenshot of what I did, and you can walk through. And turns out this is actually pretty simple to create. So I learned how to build a viz just like this And it gave me an idea. What if we had a viz like this at Chick-fil-A that would allow us to look at our product mix and our menu and see which menu items are popular over time, and are there any shifts in customer preferences? So I built this dashboard to explore our product mix. It's just a unique view into what's happening with our menu, and it provides answers to the questions, what are our top products? All the workbooks that I'm sharing today have been altered a little to avoid sharing sensitive information, but this is really close to the workbook that's published on our server. You'll notice across the top several filters. Users can explore data for any menu category. Here you see beverages, but products within each category can be ranked on number sold or number promoted, meaning given away. And all this data is available to view for a specific region or service team, which helps us compare how products sell in different areas of the country. So it's not very surprising, soft drinks, #1 beverage month after month. And if you've had our lemonade, that's #2. That's makes sense. But here's something interesting that kind of jumps out. This iced tea lemonade combination. It was ranked 10th in terms of numbers sold for beverages for several months until the summer. And then you see that jump. So what happened? We introduced a seasonal peach tea lemonade. Now, when I update this view to look at number of promos, interestingly enough, I see there was a spike in giveaways right before the jump in numbers sold. So you can see that little circle where it spiked. We gave away a whole bunch in, what is that, June? But you can see maybe that giveaway worked because numbers sold was up and they were ranked number five beverage, June and July. All right, we'll move on and look at another example. So this one is from Andy Kriebel, Zen Master, and in this viz, I know there's a lot going on, I'll try to explain it. He's looking at Superstore data, the data that comes with Tableau inside the software, and he's comparing year-over-year purchase frequencies. So that red line is 2015. And the way he's built this view, you've got 2015 highlighted, but he has a parameter. So I hope you guys can see that. It says like set target, and there's 50% in there. So you can see when did we reach 50% of orders for Superstore in 2015 versus all those other years, and the other years are those gray lines. So this was one of Andy's first Workout Wednesday challenges in 2017. If you haven't heard of Workout Wednesday, just a little bit about it, here's the lowdown. Tableau experts pose a challenge every Wednesday on this website that's shown up there in the right corner. And here are some examples of the types of challenges that you can find on Workout Wednesday. It's every single week. And not only are these kind of fun to create, but you can look at these and see they're probably applicable at work as well. So in 2017, I thought it might be a good idea for me to just do some of these every now and then. So this was one I decided to take a stab at, and I participated in this challenge, learned how to build the viz, and I just thought, you know, that's an interesting way to compare one year against another. I'd never seen that. And it gave me another idea. I thought, what if I created a dashboard that allowed users to select one of our restaurants and compare when did that restaurant hit a certain amount in sales this year versus other years. So I call this dashboard Sales Milestones. Now, restaurant 1 is selected by default, and I also have the ability to enter a sales amount in the parameter. So here you see I've typed in 1 million to see when did this restaurant hit its first million in sales each year. So you can kind of see the reference line and those little dots. You can probably start to see like the similarities between this and Andy's. All right, in my dashboard, I used a hover action so that anytime I hover over a year across the top of the view, a label with more information appears on that line. So for example, when I hover over 2018, I can see it took 61 business days this year for Restaurant 1 to reach 1 million in sales. And I can see the improvement over previous years. So let's just jump to another restaurant. So this is Restaurant 194. It's actually not. It's actually a real restaurant and fake data. But anyway, Restaurant 194. There's something else particularly interesting in this data for this particular restaurant. So last year, 2017, the green line, this restaurant was closed for a kitchen remodel. And there were no sales for about a month, March and April there. And if you look closely at the green line, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see the year 2017 actually started strong ahead of the red 2016 line, but being closed for renovations was a major setback. And 2017 annual sales only barely exceeded 2016 annual sales. But then look at what's happening this year. So the yellow line, 2018, perhaps that investment reconfiguring the kitchen is finally paying off. So Restaurant 194 reached 4.6 million in sales on September 4th this year, 33 days ahead of last year. A cool view that I would have never had if I hadn't participated in that Workout Wednesday challenge and just learned this from Andy. All right, one more example. Actually, I have two more examples. These views were built by Adam Crahan and Matt Chambers for Makeover Monday. And here they're using dumbbell charts to highlight this gap between the wealthiest U.S. households and those living in poverty. And a little about Makeover Monday, because I know some may not be familiar with it. It's a weekly project run by Zen masters Andy Kriebel and Eva Murray in the UK. Each week, Andy and Eva share a graph or some type of visualization and invite the Tableau community to remake it. Just any way you see fit, just improve upon the original viz. So for this particular week, this was the original viz. And this was an accompanying article on wealth inequality. So you get all the underlying data, you get the context, and you get the original viz, and your challenge is just to improve upon it. So I participated in this Makeover Monday, and one of the best things about it is you go about it one way, but then you really learn a lot from watching how other people attack the same problem. So I was particularly impressed with those workbooks, so I downloaded them to learn how they were made. Fast forward about a year later, and at work, my team is particularly interested and focused on operator income growth and helping operators keep more of what they earn. And last year, I was asked to create an operator income dashboard. And I remembered this view, and I thought this would be an interesting view to add to a dashboard like that. In particular, to highlight the gap between perhaps what our top earning operators are making and maybe the bottom. So I built this. And the actual workbook that's published on our server contains a lot more views, but this is just kind of an example to show you what my version of that same viz looked like. So in my dumbbell chart, you see a yellow dot that represents the top 10% of operators, and then the blue dot, which represents the bottom 10%. And this is in terms of their prior 12-month income, and you see data going back for 5 years, every month for 5 years. So I can see trends over the last 5 years? Is the gap widening over time? Are those at the bottom improving over time? And I can filter the view to display this graph for a specific region or service team. And when I hover over a line, a tooltip appears with more information. And in the real workbook, it actually, gives you real information. Okay, last example. This is a brilliant idea from Zen master Mark Jackson. He also works in Atlanta for Piedmont Hospital. And luckily for me, he's pretty active in the Atlanta Tableau user group, so I've heard him speak a few times. And for those of you who have Tableau server at work, you guys know firsthand what a game changer it is being able to publish and share your work with the whole organization. But one downside, there's really no way to customize the look and feel on the server. So when anyone goes out to Tableau server today at Chick-fil-A, this is what they see. It's just kind of a group of folders and projects. And the workbook that they're looking for, it could be in any of those places. It just makes it hard to navigate and find, what you were looking for. So because of my work, I get that complaint. I hear that from folks a lot. And I heard Mark Jackson speak about this once, and he solved for this at Piedmont Healthcare by creating a dashboard that serves as a navigation tool on his Tableau server. And just let me go back and show you guys, look at what he made. I remember seeing that thinking, that's amazing. That would be really helpful for us at Chick-fil-A. So I took a stab at doing the same thing. And let me show it to you guys. All right, this is my version. This is a prototype. I'm working with our Tableau admins at work now to kind of set this up. But what if, from our intranet, when you click Tableau server, instead of going to all those folders and projects, it just came to something that looked like this. What this actually is a dashboard, but nobody knows that. It just looks cool. And the way I built it, I followed everything Mark, did, and he has a blog that you guys can search for, but he outlines step by step exactly everything you would need to know to make it. But I wanted to make it where we have data on the top workbooks. Where do people go most frequently? What are the workbooks that they're looking at most often? So those workbooks are in our featured content. And when you hover over them, you get a tooltip with a description. And if you click on these, in one click, you get exactly what you need. It's going to open up and take you right there. Now here, find what you need. You still have all the same search that you do in Tableau. So I can search for something, and it'll open up another one of those tabs and bring up workbooks that, or views, or a project that contains that word. And here I have frequently asked questions. I can click on any of these, and it will actually open up a PDF that's stored online. And if I just want to see my favorites, it'll open up and take me to my favorites. And it knows who I am because it knows username equals Karen.Henson. But if anybody else were to click favorites, it would open up their favorites. And that is all possible because of a URL, just like that. I would have never known this if it weren't for just reading Mark Jackson's blog, and he did that at Piedmont Healthcare. If anyone has questions or needs something beyond what they get from this page, they can click here and it'll actually open up an email in Outlook and prompt them to send that to our Tableau support team. All right. So next, the time and effort that I've put toward learning from others, I really believe it's drastically improved the overall quality of my work. and the way that I approach design and presentation and data, it's improved significantly just because of how much I've studied other people. I think if you spend enough time trying to reverse engineer Condo, you get better at creating it yourself. So I've shown plenty of examples of how I steal like an artist, but here are a few examples of my own original work. So this is actually one of the most popular views on our server. I call this past 6 business days. For us at Chick-fil-A, 6 business days is a week because we're not open on Sundays. So every Chick-fil-A staff member actually receives this subscription once a week. You come to work on Monday, and this is in your inbox. And it's a very high level, but it was built to provide a simple, clean view into the prior week performance. And it was well received, so I created kind of a follow-up dashboard to it. This is our past 6 business day part view that gives a lot of the same data, but for breakfast, lunch, afternoon, and dinner. I built this dashboard for our COO. It tracks 12 KPIs that matter to executives at Chick-fil-A, and this was actually the first dashboard I used Viz-in tooltips. So in the actual dashboard, if I hover over any of the regions, I get that trend line for the specific region. Our executive committee actually plans to review this going forward each month now in their monthly meetings. I've been responsible for producing Chick-fil-A's annual performance report every year since I've been at Chick-fil-A, and that's always been a big undertaking. So for years, I would spend almost a month gathering the data, getting it in, prepping the data in Excel and Access, and then sending data to a contractor who would work with it, creating graphs in Adobe Illustrator. And this whole process, it took forever, and it was prone to manual errors because she was literally like typing in what I had sent her in Excel into Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop. So a few years ago, I built the entire APR, Annual Performance Report, in Tableau, automating that process, and it now takes a fraction of the time, and it looks just as amazing. And this is just a simple list. It's updated every day, and it shows the top 10 restaurants in sales across the chain, and then within each region. And it's just interesting to know and can be pretty helpful on specific days, like Cow Appreciation Day. That's a good way to, if you get that in your email every day, it'd be a good way to reach out and congratulate an operator on good performance. So, just to wrap up, a few tips in closing for each of these steps. Make a point to attend Tableau user group meetings. They're really great. They're useful for tips and tricks and ideas and networking. Connect with other Tableau users on social media. Use Tableau Public. Consider participating in Makeover Monday or Workout Wednesday. For those of you who work in retail, you may be interested to join us for tomorrow's retail user group session. We will have speakers from Home Depot, and I'm going to lead a panel discussion with analysts from Home Depot, Rue La La, and Pepsi. And here's some details, but it's tomorrow morning, I think after the keynote. So finding good ideas, some suggestions to where to look for inspiration. They're starting out with the blogs. There are about like 30 Zen masters. Most have Tableau-related blogs. That'd probably be a good place to start. You'd be surprised how many people they'll think of something interesting, they'll create something new, and they will just write pages and pages outlining exactly how they did it. and that can be a great way to learn. So search for Zen Master blogs. It's pretty easy to find, and here's a list. That link is just some suggestions. If you don't already receive the Viz of the Day, you can subscribe just to get that push to your email once a day. And even if you never post anything on Tableau Public, consider using it to save, like search for good ideas, search for things, and just save them as your favorites. So to kind of show you how I do that, I have a ton of favorites. I do this all the time. And my favorites are kind of like a Pinterest. So I'll save things out here for different reasons, maybe a complicated calculation, maybe a design, some way that somebody did something that maybe at the time I come across it and I don't have a use for it, but inevitably later I'll remember it trying to do something at work, and then at least I can go back out there. And I would say the vast majority of these you can download. So you can download most of these. So one last tip to find ideas and inspiration, search for Tableau hashtags on Twitter. So here's just a few. So this week in particular, TC18. But if you get in the habit, if you are using Twitter, consider using it for Tableau. If you search for hashtag Tableau or DataViz, that's a great way to just find ideas, what people are doing, how people are innovating, find people to follow, things like that. One last thing, if you do publish work on Tableau Public and you're using any kind of tips and tricks that you've learned from the community, one good thing to do is just give the original author credit, kind of like you see here. How to reverse engineer a Viz. It's really just as simple as clicking download, download workbook from Tableau Public. So in this example, I found the winning Iron Viz from last year. And I'm downloading that workbook that won last year's Iron Viz. And you can pretty much do this with anything. Connecting ideas. So if you follow the previous steps, you will find yourself applying what you've learned at work to solve real-world business problems. That just sort of happens naturally. But for the times when you're stuck and trying to figure something out and looking for a solution to solve a problem, here are some steps that I take to source ideas. So the Tableau forums are a great resource, and I've also had a lot of success with Twitter, just asking a question, using one of those hashtags. You'd be surprised how many people will write you back. And be sure that as you develop your skills, you're not only asking questions of others, but also contributing to those conversations as well. Good luck, everybody. I hope this was useful. I wanted to make sure I left plenty of time for questions. Also want to make sure everybody fills out the survey. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Do you share any visuals with the operators? Is there any of this? Can they see some things ranking?
So right now, they don't have access to our Tableau server. There's talk of maybe in the future opening it up. But for the time being, they see a lot of these, but they're printed out or sent to them. But yeah, like they're not interacting with the server. Yes? We actually have about 90. We have 90. It's really grown. 90. Mm-hmm. The question was how many Tableau developers at Chick-fil-A? So we started out just very few, like 2015. We got implemented server, launched server in 2015 in like November, and it's grown to 90 Tableau developers since then. I know you guys have other questions.
Just to put that number into perspective, how many employees are there?
2,000? 2,000 total employees and 90 developers. I'd say of the developers, we probably have like a dozen or 15 that are more like power users. And then we have a lot of folks like across departments throughout the organization that are using it, but maybe not like every single day, you know? Yes? We do. We run into some of that. We're actually testing now, what would it look like to roll out server for operators. And that's a big deal, is like, it's complicated because people want to compare themselves to others. And like for competition reasons, and operators in particular are very competitive, and they want to know how they rank against others. But that's been a really big challenge in this test of like, how do you do that and provide it perhaps like you versus your team or your like service team or like just different groups where they can't see like specific data. So there's some data for us that's more sensitive to others. Since their income is derived from profits, we wouldn't want to show like, here's another restaurant's profit dollar amount, because then they could really back into somebody else's income. But then there's a lot of other information that maybe isn't quite as sensitive, that's just helpful for them to know, like, how does my food cost compare to these other stores nearby? And perhaps then it might even spur them to know, who can I reach out to if I want to improve on that? Like, here's somebody that's doing it well. But that's a good question. Yes?
Do you use any of the mapping capabilities in Tableau to kind of decide where to open new branches?
That's a good question. Our group isn't doing that. I don't know that the group that is, like the real estate and site selection, I'm not sure they're using Tableau so much, but I know they're definitely like looking at a lot of data. I just don't know of anything particular they're doing with Tableau. So, sorry. Okay, you go ahead first. Do the franchisees have access to the Tableau reports? So we're doing a test of what would it look like for them to have access. Right now there's like 40 or 50 operators that are participating in the test, so they have access to only a handful of the reports. But potentially in the future, maybe we could roll it out to operators. Right now it's our staff. It's like the 2,000 people that work at our home office, our support center in Atlanta. So everybody has access to it, but right now operators don't. We're just testing it. But our financial consultants, business consultants, the folks that are going out working with operators in the field, they use it a good bit. They're looking at that data all the time and using it to consult with the franchisees. You had a question? It's really literally like the stuff that I put up there, it's like no one ever mapped it out like that, but I just picked up on things. This is my 4th conference, so I can remember coming to the first one in like 2015 or so, and I would see things and think, wow, that's amazing, I didn't even know you could do that. And over time, I would just start following those, like I really only use Twitter because of Tableau. I literally don't do social media. I'm like stuck way in the dark ages with that, but it's a great way to like get connected, because I kind of learned early on, like there's really a handful of people that are doing some amazing work, and it's surprising how willing they are to just let you download what they've figured out, and you can learn from them. So really those things, it's crazy because we get the question at work a lot, like what training session can we offer, or like people kind of want a quick, thing. For me, and maybe it's just me personally, but it's kind of been like over time, but it's that sort of thing, just doing those types of activities.
Did you come from a data background before?
I was a finance major. No IT or anything, no programming. I don't know SQL. Everything I've learned, it's pretty much like hands-on, just learning through work, out of necessity. Like, I was lucky that starting at Chick-fil-A when I did, I was one of the very first people to use Tableau. So in a way, there's no one else to ask questions to, which kind of forced me to learn it firsthand, like just get in there and figure it out. Yes?
I really like the Tableau sort of landing page thing. I was curious, like if you still have trouble like at the company level, like finding data that you want, or if people still ask this question, like where do I find answers to these questions, and how you guys deal with that share information across the company.
No, that's great. We haven't rolled it out yet. We've actually that was a prototype, and the plan is at some point that could turn into our landing page. I think everyone likes the idea of it, and we really do get that question a lot. Like, people really get frustrated that they can't find what they need. And those projects, they have a purpose because they're kind of organizing permissions and stuff. But for the external person, it just doesn't make as much sense, and it just annoys them. We found that. We're testing a landing page similar to that with our the operator test that we're doing. So putting it out in front of operators, there's a similar one like that. And our hope was, hey, operators haven't been using this for several years. This is going to be completely new to them, and we don't want them to feel that frustration. So we did that for them, but it hasn't been long enough for me to know if it's well received or anything just yet. Yes?
Participation in the community, is that pushed for and encouraged by the organization, or is it more on the individual's choice?
I would say it's the individual at Chick-fil-A. He's asking if participation in the community, like in the Tableau community, is pushed for by Chick-fil-A, or if it's more like individual. And I would think it's kind of more individual, but there's the groups of us that would maybe be power users. We tend to attend Atlanta Tableau user groups together. So we kind of push each other to do some of those things and encourage each other, but yeah, it's not really a Chick-fil-A push. I think it's just up to each individual person. One thing to remember too is a lot of these things, it's a lot of outside time. Doing the Makeover Monday challenges, I think sometimes people think maybe they would feel bad. Hey, should I put time aside at work and do this? I think Chick-fil-A is encouraging that, hey, that's considered development, and that's fine. But I think sometimes it's kind of up to the individual, do they feel comfortable doing it, and will they make time and make it a priority to do it and stuff? Yes? How did it start? So I guess 3 years ago, we did a presentation on this, and there were a handful of us that started using Tableau, and we were emailing out Tableau package workbooks. At the time, we didn't have the server, so the only way for anybody to consume the report was literally to go download Tableau Reader. It was terrible. And then if somebody didn't have the correct version of Tableau Reader, it didn't work. And over time, the demand for the workbooks, we had a few that became pretty popular. People wanted to use them, and they grew frustrated with always having to have Tableau Reader and trying to get around the situation, and we invested in the server. But it took about 2 years to kind of make the case for that and let people see the value. But we needed enough workbooks that were really good, that got people's attention and kind of convinced them that there was value in it. And that took about 2 years. Yes? Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have those problems. I'm kind of lucky in my role in performance reporting. The majority of the data that I need is kind of like our official, legit data. I'm not really going out and creating my own data sources, because doing things like our annual performance report, that has to be like pretty solid data that like the organization has and it's accepted. So luckily for me, a lot of that data exists out there, and we have another team that's done a lot of that work for me, but there's several in my group that's doing a lot of that work all the time, kind of to answer more questions that are ad hoc, and there's no one's prepared that data for them. So we struggle with that a lot. Yes?
And on that point, you find yourself using spreadsheets for kind of those ad hoc requests, but everything else is really handled through Tableau from a finance standpoint?
What would you guys say? Not really. They use Alteryx. Alteryx and, I mean, yeah, Tableau data sources. And manipulating the data in Tableau. Yes?
2 questions. One, if your operators don't receive Tableau, how do they receive like relevant information? And secondly, have you been able to overcome the hurdle of everyone wanting PowerPoint deck with Tableau?
Those are good questions. Okay, so the first, we still have a number of other dashboards, like different technologies. So they're still getting some of those, like they still have dashboards they can interact with that are OBI dashboards that are out on our intranet. They still have other reports that we have, like a report gallery that's been around for, I don't know, decade, 15 years. And so everybody's used to it, and it's static, but there's definitely places they can go for reports that they're used to and like data that they need. And they also have an app, Chick-fil-A now, that they'll get like more real-time data on their phone even. You know, how are the transactions looking today in my restaurant? What's going on in my drive-through? Things like that. So that they still, I mean, there's plenty of information. So introducing Tableau to them, that's one of our hurdles, is making sure we don't want to just roll out one more thing. We have to really demonstrate the value, because we don't want them to have to go to just one more place. We really want to show, hey, this is worth it, but here's why. They do get a lot of this data through like their consultants and people that are working with them and kind of sharing it with them. And your other question, remind me, what was your other question?
Are you also tied down to PowerPoint?
Oh, tied to PowerPoint? I don't know. Yeah, I guess like some, but I think we've made a lot of progress with that. There's definitely still, I think one way that we've done it is, I like the idea of building reports that are good subscription reports. So a lot of the dashboards that I build tend to be, hey, they update frequently, and you can get an update, and if you want to go interact with it, there's plenty of ways you can. But I mean, there's one I have, it's a calendar. So it's going to show daily sales, and just like a grid that looks just like a calendar, and green if it was a great day, and like red if sales were negative or down. But you can get that as a subscription, and it'll just come right to your email. But if you click in it, you could go and interact with it and change it and see like, well, what did this look like for malls or for the West region or for the Northeast region? So I think that's actually one way we've been able to kind of get people interested in it and still send it to them so that they have it right there in their email, but then kind of invite them. I think subscriptions are really good for that. Yeah. Sorry?
Do you use Tableau on mobile devices?
We primarily through the app. We haven't really done a lot of like designing a specific workbook like for the phone, but we do encourage like staff to download the Tableau app, say in everything they've saved as a favorite, comes right up. I use it all the time. Yes? We do. It's a different group. It's not our team, but we in the marketing department, they do a lot of that. We had one of our teammates took a position in that group just a little while ago. So the Chick-fil-A one, and looking at the app and how people are using it. We have campaigns around that and like a lot of monitoring of that. So a lot of data on that, for sure. Yes?
Who would you say are like the core departments that really use Tableau and get the most value out of it?
Financial services. Part of that is it kind of originated in this department. So Tableau, it was a grassroots effort at Chick-fil-A, and I think our group, financial services, there were people here that really proved the value, and our financial consultants that are going out meeting with operators, trying to help them with profitability and control their cost, grow their sales. I think they're particularly interested in it because they're just more driven by numbers and data and willing to dig into it. So that's probably the department that's the biggest, heaviest user, but it's grown a lot. There's a
Are there others? You kind of mentioned the marketing department.
marketing, supply chain. They have a lot of users. Oh yeah, field ops. Who else? Some restaurant development and construction, reinvestment in restaurants. Yeah, our executive committee. Any more questions? Thank you guys so much for being here.